Welcome to the Outre approach. I'm going to be reading Monstruo by the Dead Canary, and it was released a little bit over a week ago. They say the tree bleeds when you peel off the bark. Liz's eyes flickered in the orange light. Her lips curled into a small smile, as if she enjoyed that particular detail. That's ridiculous. There's no way a tree could bleed, Tucker said, yanking his burning marshmallow from the fire. There are photos, though. I've seen them all over Instagram. Bright red blood oozing from the bark. It's supposed to be the blood of Monstruo's victims, I added. The legend goes the tree absorbed all the blood spilled at its roots. Now instead of sap, human blood pumps through its veins. Tucker let out a peal of laughter. Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Come on, you guys. We're in biology class. You know there's no way human blood is pumping through the xylem and phloem. It's true, Liz said, shooting him a glare. You know what? I bet the whole thing is a myth. I bet Monstruo himself didn't even exist. I glanced at the tree. It stood in the shadows, several yards behind us. Blackened bark, leafless branches, a sore thumb in the forest. The hanging tree, or el arbol del ahorcado, as some of the locals called it, is nothing more than a tourist trap, Tucker continued. A tourist trap only the locals know about? Doesn't make much sense to me, I said. Tucker sighed. You know what I mean. His marshmallow fell into the fire in an unceremonious plop. It's an urban legend to tell around campfires like this one, a spooky haunted tree, the legend of a perverted, cannibalistic killer. It sounds like the plot of a Stephen King novel, I guarantee you. Monstruo wasn't real. He was real. Every single person in this town who's old enough to have seen it says it happened. I glanced over at him. And this tree is where he hung his victims' bodies. Tucker laughed. The sound echoed off the trees, making it sound like the chorus was laughing with him. Yeah, and those same locals just call him Monstruo, the Spanish word for monster. If he's real, why don't they call him by his name? Because they don't want to give him the dignity. It was Liz speaking now. The smile had faded from her face. He did such terrible things. Referring to him by name would only glorify that. That's a clever lie, but it doesn't fool me. I shifted closer to Tucker, who was plucking another marshmallow from the bag. Come on, Tucker. Ever notice how this part of town is basically abandoned, and no one ever builds on the empty lot a few feet over, even though it's dirt cheap? I laughed. The things Monstruo did are so terrible, even money won't get anyone near it. So terrible, so terrible. That's what I keep hearing. Yet, funny how I've never heard any details or facts. You want facts? I'll give you facts. He killed 17 men, women, and children. And you do a hell of a lot of disrespect to those people when you claim he doesn't exist. Liz nodded, her eyes glancing at Tucker. Look, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I'm not done. My voice cut through the cold air like a knife. Tucker jumped. He didn't just abduct and kill those people. It was a lot worse than that. Tucker's marshmallow burned and crackled. Liz shuffled her feet across the dry leaves. He led each victim, blindfolded, to the tree. I glanced down from their faces and into the blinding flames. Then he killed them and strung their bodies up in the tree as if they were trophies to show off. Liz's eyes shone brightly in the orange glow. She wiped her sleeve across them. And then he eviscerated them. Oh, Tucker said softly. Then he took them back to his house, but not before he removed their right shoes and added them to his creepy-ass memento box. And then, do I have to say it? I asked. The pillar of smoke billowed up between us, shrouding Liz and Tucker in a gray veil. He ate them, Liz whispered to him. Oh, come on, what a load of nonsense. Tucker stood up and rolled his eyes. I can guarantee you there's not a shred of truth in that story. No one's drew Nurka's tree. Somebody just made it up on the internet. You just think you're so smart, don't you? He laughed, blowing on the blackened marshmallow. Yeah, you bet I do. Then how about this? The day after Monstruo died, the tree died. Then all the foliage within a few feet of it. Nothing grows there to this day. I gestured to the tree, barely visible from our spot near the campfire. You can't deny that, Tucker. You can get your lazy ass up and see it for yourself. Tucker didn't reply. Go on, look at it, Liz said. Her smile was back. Or are you too scared? Tucker grumbled and turned around. I can see it from here. You're right, but obviously the tree died because everyone peeled off its bark. Okay, so that's why the tree's dead, maybe, but why about the fact that nothing grows around it? The tree's roots probably choke everything out, or the soil's too compacted from all the teenagers visiting and stomping it down. Right, let's talk about those teenagers. I smiled, leaning closer to the fire. My face grew uncomfortably warm. They climb it, decorate it, make out under it, hang effigies from it, Liz added. Even now, a stray piece of rope hung from the lowest branch, swaying in the wind. I tried not to look at it. Yeah, and do you know what happened to those last teenagers? No. Adrian Keller climbed it to take a selfie. A month later, he was committed to a mental hospital because he violently attacked his mother. Okay, so he was probably crazy before he even saw the tree. I'm not done yet, I snapped. On a fine Wednesday afternoon, Greg Patel skipped school to hook up with Arius Stewart underneath the tree. She got pregnant and months later miscarried, something so terribly deformed the doctors refused to call it a fetus. Tucker didn't have a snarky reply for that one. And Sydney Taylor, let's talk about her. After hanging an effigy from the tree, she started sleepwalking. At first she wake up under the tree, then she wake up in neighbors' lawns. Finally she woke up in one of their houses, surrounded by a pool of blood and two corpses. That's enough, Liz muttered. He gets the point. You don't need to repeat it. She'd taken off the right shoe of each corpse and stripped them naked, and each one was missing large chunks of flesh. When doctors pumped her stomach, they found John, okay, you made your point, Liz snapped. A thick silence fell over the three of us. Finally, Tucker said, I still don't believe it. So touch the tree then, Liz shot back. We'll write you at the sanitarium, we promise, right, John? I raised my eyebrow at her. Fine, I will. Tucker heaved himself up off the ground. With heavy footsteps, he started into the darkness. Shoot, I didn't actually think he'd do it. Wait, Tucker. I followed them through the trees. Soon enough, the three of us were standing before the hanging tree. Swathes of bark were peeled off, and a thick sap, almost blood-like, oozed from the wounds. The bits of rope swayed in the wind. Initials and hearts were carved all over the bark that was still intact. I noticed a faint marking that read Greg plus area near the roots, and my heart dropped. Tucker, please don't do it. Tucker stood on the border of the dead circle where the weeds and shrubs dwindled into sticks, leaves, and rotten mud. His arm was stretched out, his fingers inches from the truck. Tucker, I was just joking. Don't do it. Liz tugged at his sleeve. Relax, Liz. It's okay. Just a tree. Of course Tucker was going to do it. He'd always had a crush on her. No way he'd pass up the chance to impress her, be some sort of macho man. Tucker, please don't. Liz looked at me expectantly, as if she expected me to dissuade him. I was silent. Come on, let's just go to sleep. The whole idea was dumb. I wanted to touch the tree, Liz. Tucker took a step forward. I want to prove to you I'm right and that this whole thing is an elaborate hoax. He took another step forward, arm outstretched. No! Liz grabbed his shoulders, but it was too late. His fingers pressed into the bark. When he pulled them back, the red rust sap covered them. Liz stepped forward, eyes brimming with tears. No, this is all my fault. Now you're going to go crazy and kill people and... Get a hold of yourself, Liz, Tucker said. It's just a tree, and a dead one at that. The three of us walked back to the tent in silence. Tucker handled the fire. I cleaned up a bit around the campsite. By the time I got inside, Liz was already asleep. Only her messy hair poked out from the sleeping bag. I opened my own sleeping bag, snuggled in, closed my eyes. I jolted awake. For a second I couldn't place where I was. It was cold, colder than I remember being that evening. I fumbled through the darkness for my cell phone. 2:06 a.m. The light from my phone lit the inside of the tent. I saw Liz sleeping peacefully in her bag. Her mouth hung slightly open, a wet spot of drool on her pillow. The other sleeping bag was empty. Tucker, I said, softly at first. No reply. Hey, Tucker, I called. Liz stirred next to me. I slowly stood up, careful not to rustle the sleeping bag too loudly. With one hand I peeled back the entrance of the tent. Everything was pitch black. I pressed the flashlight button on my phone. It lit the clearing in a bright white glow. The charred remains of our campfire, depressions in the dirt where we left our folding chairs. And in the distance, a silhouette standing right under the tree, facing